Handle the truth. The American dream has become a nightmare. Signs of the time are on cardboard on corners in town. Like a cancer that's silently spreading, there's an unspoken fear. We're on our way down. We must take America back.
Broadcasting from my home studio in downtown Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, worldwide as National Intel Report on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio, Patriot Nation Radio Network, anywhere else you might see or hear the show. I'm Peter Serafine, and welcome to 2 hours of common sense and constitutional discussion. I don't have any guests tonight, and that's a good thing because I got big announcements and I want to share something with you. And I hope you're going to like it. So 2 big announcements. One, my 3rd book will be coming out September 17th, Constitution Day. It's called A More Tyrannical King. It's a book that compares the tyranny of government today to the tyranny of King George III. And pretty happy about it. So that comes out September 17th. And as of this morning, it's available for pre-order. So you can now go buy it, and it'll get mailed out to you on September 17th. So you can pre-order the ebook from like 9 different locations, or you can pre-order the paperback from Barnes & Noble, and it'll be on Amazon soon. It's there, but it says it's not available. I'd say give it another day, and you should be able to pre-order it from Amazon if you want to. But who likes Amazon? Like, why? I mean, it is the world's largest bookseller. So I'd appreciate it if they buy it from them and give me a review, because that would help a lot. But hey, pre-orders help a lot. When you're a small independent person like me, and I don't have a giant publishing company and a marketing budget and all that kind of stuff, those pre-orders help because they all show up as sales on launch day. So it looks like you get a big bunch of sales all in one day, and it really helps you in the rankings. So please, before September 17th, before Constitution Day, order either the ebook or the paperback version of A More Tyrannical King. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, you can do that at liberty-lighthouse.com/books. And it's right on top. Cool picture of a cool cover that was made by a friend of mine. Click it, and it'll show you all the different places that you can pre-order the book. But the other big announcement, it's really eating up a lot of my time. And this is something I didn't tell you. Mike, my producer over there in the control room, Mike, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do a Liberty Minute for a while. This other project is sucking up all of my time, just so you know. So I mentioned last Thursday, when I was sitting in this chair behind this microphone talking to all of you lovely people out there, that I had found this institution on the Constitution, and I thought, I want to teach these classes. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I told you all that. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting to do like Constitution classes. Like 3 of you called in and said, yes, you should do it. We need Constitution classes. Well, I spent the last week searching for a learning management system where I could build online courses without breaking the bank and put these courses out there. There's 5 courses from the Institute on the Constitution that I want to teach. I started with the one that I think should be first. They don't have a specific order that you have to take them. I started with the one I think should be first. It's called The Truth About the Founding of America, Your Heritage and Mine. And it's a course that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are a Christian nation and that our government was founded on biblical principles. So what I've decided I'm going to do for the vast majority of the show tonight is I'm going to let you sample, preview lesson 1 of that 4-lesson course. So in just a minute, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to hit a video, which is also going to be me, at least partly me, and let you hear that first course. It's awesome. I thought it was great. And to be honest, it's this course that I took that actually has me being more faithful, more religious, more of a biblically minded person. Hopefully, it will do the same thing for you out there. But the plan is, all right, so all of the 5 courses I want to offer, they're all different lengths. This one is 4 lessons. The real Constitution course that's really awesome that I want to get out is like 12 lessons. I'm hoping to be able to put out a lesson a week. So I've got lesson 1 of this course up. So in 3 more weeks, this entire course will be up. And then I'll move on to the Constitution course, and it'll take like 12 weeks. It's going to take me like 3 months to build that online course. And then there's 3 more courses that I want to do, but they're all different lengths. And I was trying to figure out how to charge for them and all that kind of stuff. But I figured I'm going to charge $2.50 a lesson. So this first course, that's 4 lessons long, the truth about the founding of America, I'm going to charge $10 for it. Now, the cost of that goes, not only to support the program, but there's also a cost for the learning management system to be out there. The web course platform for you to be clicking around and doing stuff. So I'm making it as cheap as I can. And right now, this first course, the truth about the America's founding, your heritage and mine, it's up there and it's set to pre-order. Like you can pre-enroll in the course, and it says $10. But in an effort, I need you to show me that this is something that you're actually interested in. This is something that you want to do. And I want you to show me that by going there and pre-ordering the course. But I'll let you do it for half off. Use the code Lighthouse between now and the middle of September, and I'll let you sign up for this course for $5. And if you really, really like what I do, then I got another deal for you. I've got a subscription plan there where you can sign up to give me $10 a month, and you'll have access to all of the courses and all of my books for $10 a month. And again, because I like you guys and because I need you to show me that you really want this, we'll make it $5. Use code Lighthouse when you go in there. You're going to go to subscriptions and you're going to click Lighthouse Keeper. And I'll give you half off whatever the price is. So if you do it monthly, it would be $5 a month. If you do it annually, it'd be $50 for the year. And you'll be able to get all of these courses and all of my books. Like you'll get the 2 books that are already up there now for free, or for no additional charge, I should say. And as soon as the 3rd book comes out, I'll put that up there and you can have that for no additional charge too, if you subscribe. And to do that, you go to liberty-lighthouse.com and find Classroom. There's a button right there that says Classroom. I'm calling it the Liberty Lighthouse Classroom. So, I think that's it. I need you to show me the support. This is a lot of work on my part to put these courses together. I mean, a lot of work. And I don't want to do it if nobody's going to take the courses. So if you're interested in learning about the courses, and the courses are this one, the truth about America's founding, how our government was founded on biblical principles, and then a 12 lesson long, hour and a half each lesson course on the Constitution. And then one about sheriffs and citizens, one about the power of a jury, and then one for civics class for school kids. Those are the 5 courses I want to put up there. And you know what? This particular course, the founding on biblical principles, the truth about America's founding, your heritage and mine, This one is so good for religious leaders that I'm going to make you a real deal. If you're a pastor, I will give this course to you for free. So call into the show or email me or click the chat button at liberty-lighthouse.com. Tell me you're a pastor and I will let you have this show for free, or this course for free. I want to get the word out. I'd like to cover my expenses, but that hasn't happened for the last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years I've been doing this, however long I've been doing this. So why start now, right? So 2 new things, 2 big exciting announcements. This is why I'm too busy to do the Liberty Minutes. Brand new book coming out September 17th. You can pre-order it now. And brand new course catalog coming where I'm going to teach you the courses from the Institute on the Constitution. And the big course, the 12-week Constitution course, is so good that some colleges around here, some colleges in this country, actually give college credit for that course. It's a really good course. So with that, yeah, I'm just going to let the first course play so that you get a sample and you can see whether or not it's worth it. Hello, welcome to this course, Truth of America's Founding, Your Heritage and Mine. I'm Peter Serafine, and I'll be guiding you through this enlightening and inspiring seminar. This course is one of several courses offered by the Institute on the Constitution, or the IOTC. The mission of the IOTC is to restore our American founding fathers' biblical, constitutional, American view of law and government, believing that fidelity to this American view is crucial to the preservation of liberty. The goal of this particular course, The Truth of America's Founding, is to demonstrate the role of God and the Bible in the establishment of the United States of America and how our American and Christian heritages are intertwined. In 2020, I took one of the courses from Institute on the Constitution, and I thought it was great. At that time, I didn't realize that there were several other courses or that I could become an instructor of those courses. Here in 2023, I took 3 more of the offerings, and I decided that I want to host them all. I built this online course structure, and now you're here too. And during this course, please follow along in your student manual. The outline in your manual and the lecture will coincide pretty well. For this lesson, we are going to start with a lecture presented by Pastor David Whitney, the lead instructor of the Institute on the Constitution with more than 30 years of experience. After his lecture, there are going to be some application and action quizzes action questions as a short quiz to assist you in using the new information you'll be learning to make a positive impact on your community. So let's get started. Here is Pastor David.
But I'm very excited about this new series because many people that I talk to about what we do at Institute on the Constitution say, I would love to come for 12 weeks, but I can't find the time to do that. And, you ask them, well, what could you do? Well, I could do a one-day seminar. And so that's what we're aiming at, a one-day seminar for many across the country that are not able to do the longer version, although we're going to encourage everyone, once they take the one-day seminar, then one of their next steps is to take the entire course because the depth that they will get there is much greater. Well, let's consider tonight America's founding and the truth of America's founding. Welcome to Institute on the Constitution seminar. The truth of America's founding, your heritage and mine as well. Think about this for a moment. What is a heritage? It's something passed down from generation to generation. You might think of some of those heirlooms that passed down, but it's more than just objects. The most important heritage is the thoughts that are passed down from generation to generation. The way we think about things as well as the way we do things. Every nation in the world has a heritage, a civilization or lack thereof, the ideas that form in their thinking and the way that people thought and established their country. To survive and grow, a nation must have rules and it must have laws, and these rules or laws are going to be based on someone's thinking. The question is whose thinking that is. Now, what about your American heritage? What are the ideas behind it? What are the rules? What are the laws? What is the value system that constitutes the heritage of every American? What was the source of those ideas? Where did they come from? And does it really matter one way or another? I'm going to argue tonight that it does matter a great deal. The essence of this seminar is that if we understand the founding and the founding era, then we will be able to restore what has been lost in our country. So this seminar is really for everyone, specifically, as Michael said, decision makers, pastors, teachers, legislators, executives, as well as the working man and woman on the street, because they too are going to influence those who are making the decisions. We've broken this study into 4 sessions, about an hour each of those sessions in length. We've included discussion questions that are going to follow each of those lectures. We're going to do that pattern here tonight as well. And those questions are designed to get you to think and review and to apply the things that you are learning in each of the sessions. Now, this seminar may be a little different from anything else you've heard before, and that's because we're going to use a teaching method that our founding fathers employed. It's called the principle approach. That means rather than studying what someone else says about what happened in history or what men thought or what men did, we're going to go back to the original of the founders themselves. What did they say? What did they write? These are known as the primary source documents that will enable us to see our heritage through the eyes or through the lens of our founders, through their words and their ideas and their principles and what they had in mind for our country from the very beginning. And so for this reason, you're going to see a lot of biblical quotations and citations because that's exactly what our founders used. That doesn't mean that we're talking about any particular or promoting any particular church denomination, but it does mean we're speaking about Christian principles because these are the ideas of our founders, as I hope to show you tonight. They used these ideas about government that they derived from the Word of God. Now, this, as we're talking about this, you might assume that we're talking about one political party or another. No, we're not talking about elephants. We're not talking about donkeys or any other creatures in the barnyard. We're going to be talking about the principles of government. And those governmental principles expressed in our founding Constitution and our founding documents, such as the Declaration of Independence for this constitutional republic. We'll begin this seminar with prayer for several reasons. First of all, because that's what our founders did. Prayer was a vitally important part of everything that they were about. And oddly enough, that tradition has even been preserved. Congress opens every session with prayer. They actually have a chaplain. And the Supreme Court, surprise of surprise, actually has a prayer at the beginning of their sessions as well. And even many of our presidents through the history of our country demonstrated that they were strong Christian followers. So we will use some of the prayers of our founders. Actually, we're going to use one of those prayers even this evening. Let's read together our first president's prayer. George Washington, many people don't know, he wrote a prayer journal, which was a prayer for the morning and a prayer for the evening each day. But part of that book has been destroyed, and so we only have up to Thursday morning. So we're going to recite together his Thursday morning prayer, but you will notice that the prayer kind of ends abruptly because either the pages were missing or torn, and we don't have from Thursday morning on through the rest of the week. But this is Thursday morning's prayer. Let's stand together, and let's pray together reading his prayer unanimously together. Most gracious Lord God, whose dwelling is in the heavens, highest heavens, and yet beholdest the lowly and humble upon the earth, I blush and am ashamed to lift up mine eyes to thy dwelling place, because I have sinned against thee. Look down, I beseech thee, upon me, thy unworthy servant, who prostrate myself at the footstool of thy mercy, confessing my own guiltiness and begging pardon for my sins. What couldst thou have done, Lord, more for me? Or what could I have done more against thee? Thou didst send me thy Son to take nature upon. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, amen. Amen. You may be seated. So you can see, just as this is one sampling of those prayers, that as we spoke about in last week's lecture, our founders were sincere, godly Christians, and they certainly held to the essentials of the Christian faith. George Washington himself said this, when one side only of a story is heard and often repeated, the human mind becomes impressed with it insensibly. The idea that he was conveying is that when you hear something often enough and over, you begin to believe it without thinking about it or analyzing it any longer. You're going to hear a side of the story that has been ignored and forgotten both by mainstream academia and obviously mainstream media. And most outlets have not talked about these things, and that is a tragedy for us as a nation. So you're going to hear the other side, the ignored, the forgotten, the side that has not been taught for many, many decades in our land. I encourage you to please listen with an open mind to these primary writings and these primary sources, the words of our founders, and then decide for yourself what you think about them and whether you stand with them on these issues. In your student manual, an outline of each lecture is given with questions and answers afterwards, but even more important, there's a section of the founding documents, and we'll refer to that section throughout the seminar and encourage you to read that on your own as well. One last note before we begin. This information is likely to stir questions in your mind as well as in your heart that we may not have time to properly address in the time constraints of the way this seminar is designed. And therefore, you'll have index cards before you on the tables. Please use them, write down any questions or comments you might have, and we'll seek to answer them later, either by email or by phone after the seminar is concluded. Well, let's begin on this seminar, the truth of America's founding. The first lesson we're going to learn is that our country, America, was founded on biblical principles, and this is an undeniable fact looking at the primary source documents themselves. Here are several questions to think about. Do you have an American heritage? Do you know what it is? Can you articulate it to others? Can you teach it to others? Most of us would answer yes to the first question, but we might struggle to put it into words or to teach another person what that American heritage is. Here's another question. Do you have a Christian heritage? And do you know what it is? Can you articulate it and teach it to others? And why is it important to know this? Most of us may be a little unsure of ourselves when we try to answer those questions. What if you were told that your American heritage and your Christian heritage are inextricably linked together? We're going to prove that to you tonight from the founding documents themselves in this seminar studying America's founding. Not from theories or not from what some revisionist historian might want to communicate, but rather from the primary sources and original documents so that you can discover the real truth about America's Christian heritage. Let's go all the way back to 1492. Perhaps you remember that date from your school days. That's when Columbus, as they say, sailed the ocean blue. And Columbus in our day is often portrayed as an opportunist, as a villain, as somebody who is not a good character in many ways. But let's look at what he had to say. Columbus's own writings reveal something entirely different than the way he...
Right, break time. We'll come back and finish the lesson later, but I want you to hear this song. This song's causing a whole bunch of commotion because, you know, people in the cities, well, they don't think the way the people in small towns do.
Got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one. Good luck
Hey there, are you going to wait till the cows come home to get your new ease-off drop-and lift?
What in the world is an ease-off drop-in lift?
Our ease-off is a new tool to increase production for your meat processing company that will get that whole hog or half a beef on or off your rail with our remote control.
That sounds great, but can I afford it?
Sure, and the ease-off installs fast. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue, speed up your line, and increase profits.
Okay, I'm convinced. Where can I get my ease-off?
Go to easeoff.com. That's EAZEOFF.com. And hurry because we're offering free shipping for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows, too.
Ease-off, LLC, 417-932-6419.
American Freedom News is your daily website that will keep you fully informed on what both the good guys and bad guys are doing in the information war in which we are all engaged. Fed up with the lies of the fake news media and the censorship of big tech giants? American Freedom News is the solution, as we provide truth and knowledge on all the vital issues of the day. American Freedom News believes in America first. The establishment wants us split into numerous hostile groups rather than uniting in a common cause against the corrupt oligarchy that is plundering America and the world. Many more Americans are waking up and realizing they are the victims of the ongoing Great Replacement and Great Reset. But the malevolent forces trying to systematically destroy America can and will be defeated. Be fully informed by reading American Freedom News, the best news and information site on the internet. Go to AmericanFreedomNews.us and find out for yourself. That's AmericanFreedomNews.us.
Here's some interesting news. Due to all the recent claims about possible nuclear wars, viruses, solar flares, and civil unrest, people are scrambling to prepare and stockpile food. But the one thing out of reach for many is an underground bunker. Until now. Because you can now have a 3D printed underground bunker in just one day. An excavator digs a hole in your backyard, and 3dbunkers.com shows up in a small truck and sets up their 3D printer under a tent completely undetected. They can print as many rooms as you want at a fraction of the cost compared to traditional metal bunkers. 3D Bunkers uses polymer concrete, which is 5 times stronger than regular cement. YouTube 3dbunkers.com and watch the video. The creators of 3D Bunkers is looking for a business partner that can help bring this technology to the world. And we need to protect our way of life without living in fear. Contact Brad at 3dbunkers.com for more details or visit 3dbunkers.com.
Here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town.
That's just freaking great. Now my computer screen is completely frozen. It won't do anything. So I can't continue the lecture. Hey, I think I got it. Or maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, have you heard the commotion that song, Try That in a Small Town, has caused? One of the View, those people, they all seem to think that it's racist, that the song is racist. And one of the reasons that they say that it's racist is because one of the courthouses that's shown in the background, well, there was a lynching there at one point in time, 150 years ago or something. The funny thing about that is, if you know anything about history, any courthouse that's been standing for more than 150 years had hangings and lynchings at them. So because he used an old courthouse in the background of his thing, it's racist. And if you watch the video, you'll notice, at some point there's somebody robbing a liquor store with a gun and he's jumping over the counter. And again, they're trying to claim that it's racist. But the person's wearing gloves and a mask and you can't tell what color they are. So who's making the racial assumption there? Just because somebody says, try that in a small town where we take care of each other, that's not racist. It's the way life used to be. We all took care of each other. Anyway, I said that I wanted to at least mention that song, and then I saw it on every TV show and heard it on every radio show, so I'm not going to dwell on it because I'm sure you've already heard all about it. But Jason Aldean, try that in a small town. I do encourage you to go out there and buy it and download it, even if you don't like the song or don't like Jason Aldean or don't like country music. Just do it, just to show the support. And I'll take a caller. Mike in the control room just asked if I want callers. I can take a caller or two if you call in real quick before I restart the Constitution course. Mike in Kentucky, line 1. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, I didn't know I was going to get on this quick. Surprise!
Welcome.
I guess you hit Control-Alt-Delete and started trying to unfreeze some stuff, huh?
I don't know what I give up on my computer at this point. Every time I think I have it fixed, and I go 2 or 3 weeks without any problems, and the next week it just freezes on me and does stupid stuff.
Well, the best tricks I've run into is just upgrading the memory. You know, if you've got 8,
I did that. That was the first thing I did was double the memory in it.
That's all you have to do is double the memory in it. And I think every now and then it's a good idea to pop those out and flip them around. Like put the second chip in the first slot, and then put the first chip in the last slot. I don't know how many you've got in that. A lot of them have 4. Some of them have 2 laptops. Yeah, so you can play musical chips on that, but upgrading that memory again wouldn't hurt. But I've noticed if you don't accept an update, especially from like Firefox, it seems like it just slows to a crawl. And I've heard people gripe about that with iPhones and stuff too. But the big burst of static, the sonic gate as some people call it, I couldn't hear part of what you said. You're going to start a talk. What was your next subject? Constitutional.
Of course. I started out the show, and what I'm going to do for most of this show is I am starting to produce courses on the Constitution, like web-based training where you can go to my website and you can log in and you can go through courses. And the first course I'm putting together, it's called The Truth About Americans' Founding, Your Heritage and Mine, and it ties the biblical source of many of our founding documents. It ties it together and shows that biblical law and U.S. government were inextricably connected from the beginning.
Equal weights and measures. We used to have biblical money, which would be justifiable as gold, silver, and brass, which I guess you consider the copper and the nickel. The penny as kind of a brass. But ultimately, your silver can turn to dross. So, what is that? I'm trying to remember his name. I was going to ask you if you'd heard about him. David Barton, I think it is, has Wall Builders. A lot of people hate that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
I don't know either.
He's collected up a lot of pre-1850 letters and stuff like that. And, I mean, really, even if the founders were scoundrels, I guess you could say, like, I don't know, deists and stuff, the problem is 99% of America was Christian.
Right. Well, and that's if you listen to this course or watch this course, whichever you're doing, the guy who's given this lecture, Pastor David Whitney, he goes back all the way to Columbus's personal journal and the Mayflower Compact and the Declaration of Independence, and he goes to the personal correspondence and talks about where these quotes came from and where all of it. Like, it's good stuff. I'm telling you. I am not a religious person at all. I for the longest time, I always thought that our founding fathers did their best to keep religion out of our founding documents. But after taking this course, it was truly eye-opening how much religion or how much God is in the foundation of this government. And because our government, our Declaration of Independence, 1776 to today, no other nation in the history of mankind has lasted standing upon one foundational document as long as as our Declaration of Independence. None.
Well, plenty of arguments go that our Constitution, what was it? Patrick Henry said he smelled a rat, and it was a lot of hijinks, I guess you'd say, were pulled. And from what I've heard from paralegals that have studied it, is that there's still elements of the Articles of Confederation that are still in play.
Yeah,
Wherever the Constitution is silent, on an issue, it reverts back to the Articles of Confederation. And we used to, in old law dictionaries and stuff, you'll find that the states were listed as the several states, capital letters, capital S. So that has somehow been eclipsed or set aside in the last, 100 years, to where, everybody thinks that all that matters is what the federal government says about the law.
Nope.
And I think they totally flipped what you mentioned. They've totally flipped the idea that, instead of separation of church and state, it should be separation of the state from church.
Exactly. Well, I've got plans to make like 40 hours worth of courses. I mean, this is not a small undertaking. And it's courses where the lectures already exist. I just have to build the course around the lectures, and it's really good stuff. And I'm really excited about it. And I need you and all the listeners out there to be excited about it. Support me. Go to liberty-lighthouse.com, click on Classroom, and either pre-enroll for this class or subscribe. Use code Lighthouse. It's half off everything there. So you can subscribe for $5 a month, which will get you access to every class I make. And
that phrase, I was just going to say that phrase that everybody likes to quote, separation of church and state, was in like an 11-page letter that Jefferson was responding to a church.
Yeah, it was the first time it was ever brought up was Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists, and he was talking about protecting the church from the state, not the other way around.
Exactly. That's the subject. But for 80 years, the Supreme Court ruled that letter was in support of that, and then they flipped.
Right. Just about everything in their country seems to have flipped right around the turn of the 20th century. From 1900
in the 1930s, for some reason.
From
anyway,
1900
whatever that
to
is,
1950
years since the 1871 corporation was established in Washington, D.C., it's like there's a timetable on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of stuff seems to happen in February, if you start noticing.
Yeah, it's because
like a year after. It's 1 year after the inauguration of the administrator, the president.
Hey, Mike, let me let you go so I can finish up this course. This is a free preview of Lesson 1 of The Truth About Americans Founding Your Heritage and Mine.
He's presented today in his memoirs entitled The Book of Prophecies, dated 1502, which is when he completed it. Notice what he wrote here. It was the Lord who put into my mind, I could feel his hand upon me, to sail to the Indies. There is no question that the inspiration was from the Holy Spirit, because he comforted me with rays of marvelous illumination from the Holy Scriptures. Well, that's a very different perspective than what most people have when they think about Columbus and what they have been taught about Columbus. And it's interesting to see his attitude towards the natives that he encountered, because he showed a concern for their spiritual well-being. And notice this next quote from the Book of Prophecies, where he says, I knew that they, the native peoples, they were a people who could better be freed and converted to our holy faith by love than by force. They remain so much our friends that I believe they would easily be made Christians. So we see the heart and the motivation of Christopher Columbus, and we want to be clear that he was not a perfect man. Other than Jesus Christ, there has been no man that is sinless. So, indeed, Columbus did some things that are wrong, some things that could not be justified. However, look at his motivation here that undergirded his voyage to the New World. It was God's inspiration. It was a desire to lead others to faith in Jesus Christ. And we all know that God works through imperfect human beings because we're a room full of them. And if God's going to work through us, he can work through anyone. He worked through Christopher Columbus as well. And it's important that you see this side of the story that's often not presented today, which again, this illustrates learning from revisionist historians' perspective on Columbus, or taking Columbus at his own words from primary source documents, the actual diary here of this very important person. Now, Much more detail than we can go into in this seminar about Columbus can be found in an excellent book by Professor John Eismo, Columbus and Cortez, Conquerors for Christ. And God did work through Columbus. He brought the gospel to the Western Hemisphere and to America. And this, I believe, was the beginning of our American Christian heritage, the work that was accomplished. And Professor Eismo, I believe, gives ample evidence and compelling arguments from primary sources in his book. Well, let's look at another very important historical point about Columbus's voyage to the New World. The question is, why did he sail west to get to India, which is in the Far East? Isn't that kind of the wrong direction to be going? After all, the much shorter route would be to have traveled overland to reach that than to travel halfway or more than halfway around the world. And so he traveled west, but here's the reason. You see, there was a barrier to overland travel in the days of Christopher Columbus, and that barrier is Islam. You see, for centuries, Islam had controlled checkpoints and the trade routes that would lead to India. And in the 40 years preceding 1492, those trade routes were shut down by the Mohammedans. They would not allow any Christians into those areas at all. And so basically the trade was cut off with the Far East, which had become a lucrative trade in that day. And so there was one other alternative, and one to sail around the tip of Africa, which was a very dangerous and treacherous voyage. Others did make it. But Columbus proposed to sail west as the easiest route to take the gospel of Jesus Christ to the Indies, which he thought were much closer than they actually were. We need to know that Islam, from its very inception, has been at war against Christianity. And that war has gone on and off, hot and cold, for many centuries. But since the founding of our country, almost from the inception of our country, Islam has also been at war with the United States. Do you know the first war, after we concluded the War for Independence, the very first war that was declared against America, you know who it was? It was the Barbary Pirates. Those were Mohammedans who were attacking our shipping, imprisoning and then selling as slaves American sailors and some American women and some American children on ships that were captured by these Barbary pirates. And so the very first war was a war against the Mohammedans, and that war was successfully waged and won. Off the coast of Tripoli, North Africa, in the years 1801 to 1805, the Marines were a very important part of that war. Anybody here served in the Marines? Or you have family members that served in the Marines? I'd like to thank those who served, because in serving our country, they kept freedom alive. And if you know some Marines, you ought to thank them for their service. Can you think of the very first words of the Marine hymn? You know, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Tripoli, that was the Barbary pirate wars that were fought. And the Marines were a very important part of winning that battle. And so Islam in 1804 was attacking Christians and enslaving and selling Christians as slaves in North Africa during that war. And this Islamic fighters' most common weapon was a scimitar, a crescent-shaped sword with which they loved to run on horseback and lop off the heads of their victims, which was anybody that opposed Islam. And that's where the term leathernecks came from. You know that? The Marines recognized this strategy of battle and that they needed extra protection, so they made very thick and heavy leather collars, which would not allow the swords of the Mohammedans to get through and separate their head from their shoulders. Now, when we think of the battle and what took place, it's important for us to know that history, because today the increasing acts of Islamic terrorism are all part of that same history that goes all the way back to Muhammad himself. The assaults on innocent civilians around the world, as well as here in our United States, it becomes extremely important at this time that we learn more of these historical truths about Islam and Christianity. We don't have time, obviously, in this seminar to go into great detail on that topic, but we've included in your packet The Threat of Islam to Liberty and Christianity, a short booklet, a good read that encourage you to peruse, because that will give you an understanding of that whole issue. Well, moving from the founding in the Columbus era, moving to perhaps the most important of all the early people who came to America, we find that it was families that were first settled in a little group of pilgrims. And they were the first families, not the first people, because obviously Jamestown was before that, but it was not primarily families that settled Jamestown. The first families that came and settled America were the Pilgrims. And our 12-week course at Institute on the Constitution that gives a much more gripping story and much more detail about the Pilgrims in their own words. But and their primary source there is of Plymouth Plantation, written by their second governor, William Bradford. And due to time constraints, we won't share much of that, but I want to share one element of that, because contrary to most modern day teaching, the reasons the Pilgrims came to America was not for religious freedom. You probably haven't heard that before. You see, the Pilgrims already had gained their religious freedom back in 1608, 12 years earlier, when they escaped from the tyrannical King James I and they immigrated to Holland, where they had religious freedom. Now, they decided to come to America from Holland. They decided to make that dangerous voyage with their whole families, moms and dads, and put everyone at risk. And that Atlantic crossing was one in which there was death. And it was not a safe crossing for most people. But it was not just male explorers. Men, women, children, all together, families came. And they came not as some of the other explorers and settlers had to, gain wealth and expand an empire. They came to do something very, very different. And they told us in the Mayflower Compact exactly what it is that they plan to do. Turn to your copy there and let's read their words out loud. This is what they said their purpose was in the Mayflower Compact. Let's read this together. In the name of God, amen. Having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern part of Virginia. We'll pause right there in our reading of it, but it should be noted that it's very important phrases here that have often been removed from school textbooks, that is, the few textbooks that still refer to the Mayflower Compact. And the underlined portions there that have been removed are in the name of God, amen, for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. The revisionist historians do not want children to know that this was the purpose for which the Pilgrims came to America. Another perfect example of historic revisionism. They came to America not just for personal religious liberty. They came, it says, to set up an entire nation for the purpose of glorifying God and for the purpose of advancing the Christian faith. Notice what they said they were going to do. They were going to unite God and government. Wow. Today, when you talk about something like that, people get really upset with you. But that's what they said they came to do, to unite God and government. And this is the first very clear link in the heritage of our American country, linking the American heritage with our Christian heritage. They would call this American exceptionalism. How did they do this? Well, wouldn't it have been great if the Pilgrims left us a written manual, a set of instructions, a strategy for freedom to establish and maintain that freedom, something we could refer back to time to time? Well, actually, they did. We're going to see it here in a moment from the film Monumental. We have permission of Kirk Cameron and the other producers of Monumental to show you this clip out of that presentation. So if you'd just pay attention to Monumental.
I wish they had left us some kind of a training manual, some kind of a secret sauce recipe card that we could pick up and go, all right, here's what it is, here's what we do. What do we do? How do we get back to that?
Now, when the children of Israel going into the promised land, they crossed the Jordan River and God stood it on end and they walked across. And before the waters stopped parting, God told them to take 12 stones from the bottom of the river and put it up on the top of Mount Gilgal and make a monument. So that when your children ask, what are these stones? You'll be able to tell them this is where God parted the sea. And that's what the Pilgrims left us. They left us a monument that not only gives tribute to what was accomplished here, but it gives us a specific strategy, a breakout of a blueprint of if we would ever forget what made America great, what made us free, we can go back and follow that strategy, and it's right up on a hill a half mile from here.
Right here?
Right here.
thing is huge.
It's 180 tons of solid granite. It's the largest granite monument in America, and it's hidden on a hilltop overlooking Plymouth in a residential neighborhood.
I've never heard of this.
Hardly anybody in America knows about it, and yet the people of America put this together over a 70-year period, paid for by the Congress, paid for by the state legislature in Massachusetts, as a strategy laid out. We call it the Matrix of Liberty, that was given to us by the forefathers, by the Pilgrims. And those 130 years ago, when they built this, wanted to leave this behind for us, so that if we would ever forget how liberty is built, we would know what to do to regain it.
This is how they did it.
This is how they did it. Now, if somebody else wants to try another way, which is what's happening today in America, we're trying 1,000 ways to turn America around, but this is the way it was done. This is it. The only successful strategy of liberty that has ever been carried out in the history of mankind. Well, let's walk through it. And let's take this strategy apart. What does this mean? What are they trying to tell us here?
So where do you start?
Well, her name is Faith. It says so right there. And she is pointing her finger to heaven. Why?
For God is.
For God is, because her faith is in the God of the Bible, in Jesus Christ. They knew that the only faith that could bring true liberty was a faith in the one true God and his Bible. And you see a Bible there, an open Bible. It's a Geneva Bible. The pages are opened up, which meant that they read it. And as they read it, and as they had faith in God, he gave them wisdom. That's why you see the star on her forehead. She's given wisdom to know how to live in this world. And all of the rest of these statues, each one weighing almost 20 tons, is tied to faith, because without faith, it falls apart. And that's the beginning of it all.
Where do we go from there?
From here, you need to go to character or morality, and you'll notice...
Because that's the internal liberty.
That is the internal liberty, which is the beginning of all freedom. She is called morality. Notice that she has no eyes. That is on purpose, because she's looking internal character, the transformation of the heart first, and then that brings external transformation. And notice that she has the 10 Commandments in her left hand and the scroll of Revelation in the right. What would that signify?
The Bible.
Exactly. That if you want to have morality, there has to be a standard, and more than that, there has to be an internal transformation. This is speaking of the need to internalize and allow God to change our hearts and our minds first.
Because in England, you had top-down morality imposed on people. Do this, do that. You're moralizing people, but you're saying their morality started in the heart.
In the heart. It had to be changed here. They realized
inside.
Just because you said you were a member of a church, like the Church of England, didn't make you a Christian. And you see this over on the side. The side statues give an explanation of what the meaning of this is for us. That's why we need the evangelist. You see the evangel here writing down the Gospels. And there's a need for evangelists. Why? Because we need to have the gospel of the great liberating gospel of Christ that says he came to set us free first.
So this is completely contrary to the way the rest of the world had done it up to this point. The Pilgrims are saying that morality starts internally with the gospel. The evangelist has to preach the message that transforms the heart, and then you want to do what's right, rather than being forced to do what's right from the king who tells you what good and bad is.
That's it.
Okay, what's next?
What's next is, and you see the development of it, if you want to have a free civilization, you need to have a civil authority or civil law that will give a base for that freedom. In other words, you've got to have some degree of order in society. And that order, as you see here, is built upon law. The principles of God's law then are related into the civil law. And that's what we see here in his left hand. We also see his hand, his right hand is extended in mercy. Mercy toward those that he's dealing justice with. Why? Because this form of law has a degree of equity in it. And you see this in the side statues where...
Can we go see?
Yeah. Justice. She's holding the scales of justice with justice and equity, which means that, when a crime is committed, it should be cared for in terms of its punishment, the same for the rich and for the poor and for everyone else. There should be equality under the law. On the other side, we notice that this form of law is different than the laws of so many nations that are built on tyrants, that are built on, if the Aztecs wanted to cut your heart out, they just cut your heart out. Here, mercy. Mercy built upon the base that he offers us mercy and grace along with law. And in this form of law, there is that tremendous mercy.
So you have to start with faith. Faith in...
All right, it's almost break time, so I got to pause, and I need to send a message out. If there's somebody who just subscribed, and I greatly appreciate that. Somebody just subscribed, but they used an email address that isn't working. In order to get the course for free, I need you to contact us. Either call the show, email me, hit the chat button at liberty-lighthouse.com, something. I have to give you a coupon code to use to get the courses for free. Right now, lesson 1 is up there as a free preview, but as I add the rest of the lessons, they're not going to be free previews anymore. You're going to need a coupon code to get it for free. So if you just signed up to subscribe, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. And you put a bogus email address in, or maybe you put in, typed it wrong, let me know. Anyway, it's break time. Be back in 3 minutes. Peace.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Hello, hello, hello from beautiful Colorado. My name is Samuel Jung Kei, and I am currently the lead Shilajit hunter and master herbalist for Colorado Shilajit Company. In this video series, I will be discussing what we believe is the greatest of all adaptogenic superfoods and the single greatest natural healing remedy gifted to us by Mother Earth. I think you too will become as excited by this incredible substance called Shilajit as we were and are after our discovery of this amazing gift right here in beautiful, colorful Colorado. You may already know Shilajit by other names: Shilajit, Momio, Momi, Mami, Mineral Pitch, Asphaltum, and others. Shilajit literally translates to destroyer of weakness and conqueror of mountains. Shilajit has been in use for thousands of years and is considered as the highest valued cure-all of any earthly substance.
Look for the gold mountain and medical symbol logo in banners on republicbroadcasting.org to watch the full video and see more information. Use code GORBN when ordering. That's GORBN.
Einstein once said, "Future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies." What did he know? Imagine you hear ocean waves caressing a beach, or a favorite song from the past, or the trickle of the babbling brook. All of these are sound frequencies that positively affect us. Terahertz is a soothing, healing frequency that has been proven to resonate at the same frequency as healthy cells. It penetrates the body and stimulates new healthy cell growth. Want to diminish muscle aches, joint pains, and experience a greater sense of well-being? Tired of spending money on short-term remedies that never seem to work? Soothing, healing, relaxing terahertz frequency is now available and as handy as flipping a switch. Terahertz technology is changing the course of what we were taught about how to maintain our health and well-being. To read more about this amazing breakthrough and to order your terahertz frequency wand, go to naturalearthmedicine.com. That's naturalearthmedicine.com.
You can't handle the truth.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit republicbroadcasting.org today, because you can handle the truth.
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think it's tough. Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town.
Yeah. Hey, you remember when BLM was doing all their stuff and they were promising that they were going to take it to the suburbs? When they were doing that, what I was thinking was, I know people who will literally sit in a tree for days hoping for a chance to shoot something. Really? You're going to come out here? That's funny stuff. Anyway, that song, again, Jason Aldean, try that in a small town. Good stuff. It's been called racist. CMT, Country Music Television, took it off the air. Like, they're not even going to air the video anymore. And it's just what it sounds like. Try that city crap, carjackings and robbing liquor stores and stuff like that in a small town, and see how far it gets you. And I think we need to support Jason Aldean and just show contempt for places like CMT, like downloading that audio. By the way, welcome back to the second hour of National Intel Report, live on Republic Broadcasting Network, Liberty Lighthouse on Mojo 50 Radio and Patriot Nation Radio Network. We're going through and playing, or I'm going through and I'm playing a course that I'm building right now. It's called the Truth About America's Founding, and it's a course that I'm in the process of building, and I'm going to make available to you all for about $10. But right now, if you use code Lighthouse, we're going to make it $5. And to do that, you go to liberty-lighthouse.com/classroom, or click the classroom icon on there on the homepage. You got two options of how you can do this. You can pay for each course. I'm planning on making 5 courses. We're talking like 40 hours worth of training. You can pay for each one by themselves, which is probably going to end up costing you like $80 or something like that. Or you can subscribe. And if you subscribe, then I'm going to give you access to not only all of the courses, but all of my books as well, for download for free or for no additional cost. So if you subscribe for $10 a month or $100 a year, you get all of this stuff included in your subscription. And right now, that's $5 a month or $50 a year using code Lighthouse. But that is a limited time offer. That's going to end in the middle of September. So if you're interested in learning about the Constitution, where we came from, where the founding fathers got their inspiration, got their words, what they quoted in their writings, these are the kinds of courses that you need to listen to. This is good stuff. It's all courses that are I'm doing in conjunction with the Institute on the Constitution. They put out some good work. I'm teaching their materials. And with that, I guess we'll just...
That recipe. This is that strategy, that matrix that was what built America. This is it. And if we want to try something else, yeah, people can try other things. But in the history of the world, the one strategy that has brought more liberty, more prosperity, and more joy than any other is this strategy. Why would you go anywhere else?
Amen. That is very powerful, isn't it? Wonderful. And the strategy of our founders was clear. It's clear. We'll take some questions later on. But let's focus on what they said there at the very end of this clip. that the result of living the strategy outlined in this monument has brought more liberty, more prosperity, and more joy to our country than any other strategy in the history of the world. That's what made America great. And here's the main point of all of it. There cannot be real liberty or real prosperity for any people or for any nation without God, without Jesus Christ, and without biblical principles. Those are the keys to true liberty. Other nations have tried to copy American strategy. You know, they've taken our Constitution, altered a few words here and there and so forth, and they've hoped that their people could enjoy the same measure of freedom and prosperity that has been in our history. But many of these nations have not lasted very long at all, and they haven't really provided the same level of freedom and prosperity. What's the difference? They took the same document. The difference is what we saw in this presentation. They did not really understand that the most important part of the strategy of our Pilgrim forefathers and our founders as well, that they all understood, is that we must have faith in the God of the Bible and in His principles in order to be truly free. Biblical principles lead to freedom, while man-made principles lead to chaos, confusion, and to tyranny. And don't we see all too much of that in our day at this point in time? Well, during the next 140 years, from 1620 to 1760, the new colonies grew and they prospered. They did very well because the biblical principles being learned from the Pilgrims were passed on to the next generation and the next generation through education in the home, in the church, and in the school. By the way, it was all private schools. There was no public school in America till about 80 years after the Constitution was signed. And the private schools were far more successful than anything that's ever been accomplished by the so-called public or government-run schools. You see, the early colonists understood these biblical principles would assure a foundation of liberty for our land, and that tyranny and bondage would result from ignorance and neglect of these biblical truths. So the Christian lifestyle of the colonial families was further intensified in the Great Awakening that took place from 1740 to 1760. Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield were the major leaders in that revival in America. And many historians analyzing that period have concluded that there never would have been an American war for independence had it not been for that Great Awakening, had it not been for that spiritual revival that laid the groundwork for that breakaway and that liberty from tyranny. The godly environment of the Awakening actually affected many of our founding fathers, people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, as well as John Adams. They were young men during that period of the Great Awakening. Well, by 1760, many of the colonists were becoming increasingly upset with England's tyrannical rule over them. They strongly opposed things like the trade acts that the British Council had enacted in 1760 that authorized the search without a warrant of your personal property, of your home, for any reason whatsoever. Does that sound all familiar with what's happening today? Yep, shades of that happening right now. They also opposed the Stamp Act of 1766, which imposed heavy taxes on the colonists without any parliamentary representation on their part. Most of us remember in school that phrase, taxation without representation. We're told that's the reason we separated. Well, it is one of the complaints that but we'll see that it was only one of 27 complaints and grievances that the colonists listed in the Declaration of Independence. A much more prevalent slogan than taxation without representation actually was in the founding era, and it was this. And again, most textbooks won't tell you this. It was this phrase, no king but King Jesus. No king but King Jesus. That was the sounding cry for our founders' era. And that echoed the Pilgrim strategy for America. The colonists recognized that God's authority extended over civil government as well as family government and church government and self-government. Well, when it became clear to the colonists that just insisting on their rights was not sufficient, the colonial leaders who opposed this tyranny officially declared independence from King George III and from England when they met in Congress in July of 1776 and they wrote the Declaration of Independence. Many years later, John Quincy Adams, who was son of founding father John Adams and sixth president of the U.S., he said, "The highest glory of the American Revolution was this. It connected in one indissoluble bond the principles of civil government with the principles of Christianity." This isn't me saying this, it's John Quincy Adams saying this. a primary source telling us that our American heritage and our Christian heritage were linked together in the founding era. That's what they understood. Historian David Barton, in his book, The Role of Pastors and Christians in Civil Government, said, "No nation has ever endured as long under the same founding document as America has under the Declaration of Independence." France had her revolution about 10 years after ours, and she is now under her 15th form of government. Russia had 4 constitutions just since 1918. This type of instability has characterized much of European countries as well as the rest of the world except America. By the way, this book is part of your materials as well. So where did our founders find the ideas that made the Declaration of Independence the most successful government document in the history of the world? We can find that answer in their own words by looking at the Declaration of Independence itself. Notice that as you study the Declaration of Independence, they referred to the God of the Bible 4 times in that document. And these references we'll find are highlighted. Please remember, this is a government document. This was not something published by the church. No, it was a government document. Let's start at the very beginning and focus on the first 2 paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence. I'd like you, if you would, to read this first paragraph aloud with me. Let's read together. "When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them." Let's stop right there for a moment and consider those words. That phrase, the laws of nature and nature's God, is critical. It's a very well-known legal phrase during the founding era, and everyone in the colonies knew exactly what that phrase meant. So it's important that we know what they understood it to mean in their day, because actually it still means the same thing. Revisionist historians have tried to muddy it, but it still means what it meant in their day. These essential words meant the following. By the way, the definitions we're going to take are from Webster's 1828 dictionary. This is another primary source. Noah Webster, if you read the introduction to this dictionary, the reason he wrote this dictionary was to preserve the meaning of the words in our founding documents. In other words, he understood over time, and we're more than 200 years down the pike now, over time, the words might get muddied, the meanings might be altered, and people might try to change what they said. And he wanted you and I to understand what the founders meant by every word in the founding document. So we're going to refer to Webster's 1828 dictionary. So what does this phrase, the laws of nature, actually mean? Webster says this: it is a rule of conduct arising out of the natural relations of human beings established by the Creator and existing prior to any written precept. Thus, it is a law of nature that one man should not injure another, independently of any prohibition from a supreme power. So in other words, these are the laws that are intuitively known to man through our God-given conscience. So, you know, when you have children, and we've had a couple of children, when they're young, they often squabble and fight over toys. Have you ever heard kids say to one another, "It's mine"? You know, they're fighting over some toy, and one kid will grab the toy out of the other kid's hand and go running with it. And what's the kid who just had the toy taken out of his hand going to do? He's going to go after that other kid, right? He's going to get his toy back. Why? It's mine. So before you can even teach them property rights and a whole theory of governmental property rights, they know property rights. They know what God's law says. Thou shalt not steal. God's written it on their heart. Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15 clearly state that as well. So these laws are the internal laws that God has written on the hearts of every human being. So according to the laws of nature and of nature's God, your conscience and the revealed law of God's word, the Bible, are what these 2 statements mean. Let's look at that second phrase, the laws of nature's God. And again, going to Webster, the moral law, here it is, contained in the 10 Commandments, written by the finger of God. And so these are the laws that God revealed in a book, not just written on our hearts, but revealed in his book, the Bible. So this would include the 10 Commandments, obviously, but is not limited to the 10 Commandments. Another primary source for our founders would be Sir William Blackstone. He was the leading legal thinker of the day. Every one of our founders read his commentaries. And so when he spoke on this issue, they followed his thinking. And he said this: the laws of nature's God include all revealed law, which meant all other divine laws found in the Bible. So not just the Ten Commandments, the entire Bible is the laws of nature's God. So right here in the Declaration of Independence, the foundation of law in America is the laws of nature and the laws of nature's God. Now, we want to emphasize that words matter, and their origins and their definitions do not change, in spite of those revisionists who want to try to make us believe that they have changed. And it's really important that we learn to understand the significance of this phrase, the laws of nature and nature's God, because that phrase is the foundation. It established the very basis for all law and for all government in our founding era. If a law is enacted by the people or by the government, and it falls within the boundary of the laws of nature and nature's God, then the people were bound to obey that law. It was a legitimate law. But if the government or if the people, if any law fell outside those boundaries of the laws of nature and nature's God, it was considered pretended legislation. And the people were not bound to obey pretended legislation. Now, did I just make this all up? Or are we really discovering what our founders' original understanding of law was? Of the 27 complaints and grievances against King George III that are numbered for you there, only one of these relates to taxation without representation, only one of 27. Take a look for a moment at grievances number 13 and number 19. And I'd like you to join me in reading these aloud, these grievances against King George III. Number 13. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. And then number 19, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Did you notice the words, the phrases there? Pretended legislation and pretended offenses? What does pretend mean? It means to make something up. You know, it means to make something that's not true. And that's exactly what our founders knew King George was doing. He was making up laws out of thin air that were not true, offenses that did not meet the criteria of the laws of nature and nature's God. Do you think the same application should be made today? Oh, it should, right? We need to take a look at all the supposed laws to see if they meet this criteria. All laws, all executive orders, and even court opinions, even Supreme Court opinions, when they're rendered, if they do not comply with the laws of nature and nature's God, they should not be considered legally binding. So let's just put this to the test here. According to the laws of nature and nature's God, your God-given conscience, and the revealed law of God in the Bible, including but not limited to the Ten Commandments, can abortion be legal in America? And the answer is no. Why? Because God has given his command in his word in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 13, thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not take innocent human life. It is a crime. And so according to the laws of nature and nature's God, it's not law and should not be considered as law. Let me ask you another question. If two men do some crazy ceremony and claim that they got married, is that marriage? Or if two women do the same thing, is that marriage? Oh no, not according to God's law, the laws of nature and nature's God. Very clearly in Genesis chapter 1, God made them male and female. In Genesis chapter 2, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is how our founders looked at law. This is what they meant when they said in the Declaration of Independence, the laws of nature and nature's God were the standard, and not any human thinking, and obviously not what's going on in America today. Tragically, in America today, there are lots and lots of pretended laws, and we're dealing with unbelievable amount of pretended offenses in our day. Well, let's move on to the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. The first sentence is one of the most remembered sentences of everyone. Let's read it together, if you would. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now let's stop right there and consider some of the specific phrases. Let's start with the phrase created equal. Why did they use the word created? Because they believed in a creator God who created the entire universe and created every single human being. And because they considered the existence of creator, as it says here, a fundamental premise, they actually called it there. It's not something to even argue about. It's not something they had to defend. It's as plain as the multiplication tables. 2 times 2 equals 4, and you can't change it no matter what. There is a creator God. That was the fundamental premise of everything else that it was based upon it. And so notice also, he said that they were created equal. And equal doesn't mean the same. That is, it doesn't mean every human being is exactly the same height, has the same hair color, the same eye color, the same intelligence, the same physical skills, the same weight. No, we're all very different. Every one of us very, very unique. By equality, they did not mean equality of outcome, that everybody has the same education, drives the same car, went to the same school, and blah, 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 is the same in every way, shape, or form. They never had that in mind, and neither is it implied in anything they stated here in the Declaration of Independence. Not equality of outcomes, but equality for this purpose, equality under the law. Everyone, whether rich or poor, no matter the color of their skin, everyone should be held accountable to the exact same standard, and everyone tried by the exact same set of laws. No equality of outcome, but equality under the law is what they were referring to. And it's interesting to see, because what has been attempted since the supposed great society of LBJ is to, by trillions of dollars, perhaps at this point in time, to create some equality of outcomes. So entitlement programs and money spent on certain forms of education to try to make equal outcomes for everyone. And what's happened? It's failed miserably. Why? It doesn't comport with how God made the universe, so you're fighting against the Creator. You can never win that battle. It will never be done. Now let's look at this last phrase, certain unalienable rights. That word unalienable is very important. Again, Webster's 1828 dictionary says unalienable means that which cannot be withdrawn or taken away. You see, our founders believed that there were certain inherent rights for all human beings that came directly from their Creator. In other words, we're endowed with these rights by our Creator, that no person and no government can take these rights from us. They're unalienable. Now, they might violate those rights, and they often do. In the history of the world, more than often, they violate the rights rather than defend them. And so let's look back at the second sentence here, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In this one sentence, we have the entire description of the founders' view of the purpose of civil government. The first part, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, clearly states that our founders' purpose was that if government secured and protected our unalienable rights, then it fulfilled its function, and that's all. Anything beyond that was not its function. That was its sole purpose, its sole function. And what are those rights? Well, God-given rights like life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. By the way, that last phrase there is one that there's a great deal of debate about what it was that Jefferson meant with his phrase, the pursuit of happiness. But we do know before the pursuit of happiness occurred, earlier in the draft, it was property, life, liberty, and property. And it was basically an expansion of your economic liberties, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of virtue, we should add in our day, was really what they were focused on. For if you pursued virtue, God's word says, then you would truly be happy. Now, notice one other phrase that's very important at the end of that sentence, the last part of it, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That means we, the people, are to decide what powers our civil government has. It's not the other way around. They don't get to determine the limits of their powers. It's we, the people, that determine the limits of their powers.
Well, that's something we seem to have forgotten, or they have seemed to have forgotten. One or the other, we determine the limits of our government's powers, according to our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution. That seems unreasonable today. It's almost break time, but I wanted to stop and just tell you what we're listening to. If you're popping in and out of the show, I don't know. This is a free preview of one of the courses that I am building that's going to be available at liberty-lighthouse.com/classroom, or click the classroom button. I plan to make 5 courses, totaling like 40 hours worth of coursework. You can buy each individual course, or you can subscribe. And if you use code Lighthouse, you'll save 50%. So you can get the subscription for $5 a month or $50 for the whole year. Get all the courses, all the books, everything for $50 a year.
Issued credit cards with elusive gold backing. Gold backing. The only gold that I want is in my back pocket, not backed by promises of an operation even the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is suspect of, giving a rating of C-. To get the full story, visit Sierra Madre PreciousMetals.com and go to the Valcombe Bullion Vault. Once you have read the whole story about the scam being perpetrated on an unsuspecting public and how you can avoid being a victim by purchasing these beautiful, barterable, tradable sheets of gold at tremendous savings and in the strictest of privacy, be prepared to take the steps to protect your wealth with the purchase of the real deal. Detachable 50-gram gold bars from Kettle Moraine Limited by calling 602-799-8214. Ask about our 1-ounce Valcombe detachable bars, which break into 1/10-ounce bars. And don't forget, for all of your precious metal needs, whether buying or having the need to sell, call Kettle Moraine Limited. Remember, no dinar, no celery, and no carrots. If you buy from someone else, tell them you want AU, not BS. Call Kettle Moraine Ltd. today at 602-799-8214. Kettle Moraine Ltd. 602-799-8214.
Are you one of the millions of people who feel like there is a dark cloud hanging over their heads whenever they're using pharmaceutical drugs? For some, the short-term relief can turn into an opioid addiction nightmare. Have you ever wondered why CBD oil is a billion-dollar industry? It's because it works better than opioids and is actually healthy for you. However, CBD oil is stripped of all other helpful compounds found in the hemp plant. According to neuroscientists, the whole hemp plant, otherwise known as hemp paste, is even more effective than the chemically processed CBD oil. Are you ready to take back your health? You can try hemp paste for the price of a cup of coffee.
Hemppaste.com/RBN. Free shipping on orders over $50. See the banners for hemp paste at republicbroadcasting.org and visit hemppaste.com/RBN.
It's one of my favorite songs. Anyway, hey, if you're just joining the show, we're going through a free preview of one of the courses that I'm going to build and put on my website, liberty-lighthouse.com/classroom. This course is called The Truth of America's Founding, Your Heritage and Mine. It's basically proving that the United States government, our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, were all founded on biblical principles. The course is going to be $10. The lesson 1, which we're previewing tonight, is available as a free preview there. After that, it will be $10 to finish the course. Or if you use code Lighthouse, get 50% off. Code Lighthouse expires in the middle of September, so you get 50% off. You can get the course for $5. The code Lighthouse also works on subscriptions. The subscription is $10 a month or $100 for a year. And if you subscribe, you get all of the courses as they're being built for no additional charge. And you also get all of my books. My new book coming out on September 17th, A More Tyrannical King. That'll be 3 books, 5 courses, all at no additional charge when you subscribe. That's $10 a month, $100 a year, or $5 a month, $50 a year if you do it before the code Lighthouse expires. Coupon code Lighthouse. Save 50%. So since this is a free preview, let's see how much more of it we can get done before the end of the show. This is the final segment. So Let's see what we
The
can do.
committee looked at it and said, we want to add to this. And one of the things they chose to add, Jefferson only had one reference to God. Well, they added a second reference to God. They added this reference. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And then they took their draft to Congress. And Congress looked at it and said, well, this is good, but it's not strong enough. And they added two more references to the God of the Bible. Congress added this. We appeal to the supreme judge of the universe for the rectitude of our intentions. That is, they said, we know there is a creator God, and he is Lord and God and judge. Someday he's going to judge what we're doing in this war for independence. And we are appealing to him that what we're doing is just and right and according to his law. And then in the final paragraph, the Congress added this. With a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. They were relying on God. In a sense, they were appealing and praying to God for his help in this war that would bring liberty. Historian David Barton summarizes what they did. The majority of the founding fathers wanted God to be the center of their government. The Supreme Court of the United States pointed to the Declaration of Independence as clear proof of the intention of the founding fathers that Christian principles were to remain the basis of our civil government. And that is what we teach at Institute on the Constitution. That is what all of our courses are seeking to communicate. More evidence can be found in your books, and we'll hope you'll read through those documents on your own, drawing it all back to the biblical principles upon which our country was founded. Well, it's time to review and to make modern-day applications. You've just learned how your American and Christian heritage were linked, creating the American exceptionalism. You've also seen and read how this is demonstrated historically when our founders did that, linking it in our Declaration of Independence. The founders linked civil government to biblical principles in the Mayflower Compact as well. And they set up a government. Now, when we set up a government, we know it's all about politics, right? If you think of the word politics, many people divide it into two parts. Poly, which is the Greek word for many, and ticks. Well, we all know what those are in the springtime, those bloodsuckers that you just can't seem to ever kill, And, well, that might kind of seem to describe what the mess we're in today, does it not? But we're going to see afterwards what Webster says in the 1828 dictionary about the definition of politics according to our founders' understanding of that. Historically, as we've just seen, the church and state work side by side. What do you think it would look like today if the same thing were to happen? If the church and the state work side by side in politics?
Before we move on, let me explain some of the resources in your student manual. Please turn to page 5 so that we can go over the resources and the going deeper sections together. Each of the 4 lessons in this course will have a list at the end listing which resources were used in this particular lesson. So if you want to check Pastor David's facts, or if you want to read more, you can do that. I'm going to read the note at the bottom of page 5. It's important stuff. Several important portions of these seminar lectures are built around sections from the 4 additional material resources in the Complete Student Kit, the Monumental DVD, the Threat of Islam to Liberty and Christianity, the Role of Pastors and Christians in Civil Government, and a Pocket Constitution. If you only ordered the basic kit, just the student manual, when you registered, and you would like these additional resources, you can still order them as a supplemental package, the Extra Student Heritage Materials, for just $35. These materials will provide much more in-depth knowledge if you have your own copies to watch and read in their entirety. I have placed links to the student manual, the complete kit, and the supplemental extra materials below. Next, please note the Going Deeper supplemental readings and videos section. Every lesson will also have these extra free resources, all of which will augment what you've just learned. Since we are conducting this course online and we don't have the time constraints of an open lecture with dozens of participants, we're actually going to use many of these resources here. In fact, let's watch the first video. What makes you American? Going back to the Going Deeper part of your manual, please note that only one of the articles listed at the end of each lesson is going to be printed in your manual. I strongly recommend that you go to the websites provided and download, save these articles and videos on your personal computers. Saving these articles and videos will create a great reference library for you to not only read and watch, but to share with others. You may also wish to print your favorite articles and add them to your student manual. Now let's watch the second extra video. It's the law. The American view is the biblical view.
Are you an American? If you are, can I ask you a question? In your way of thinking, what makes you an American? Is it where you were born or where you live? Does a social security number make you an American, or a passport, or a driver's license? If we think back to when America began, what made you an American back then? Was it geography that drew our founders together in a struggle to free themselves from the tyranny of King George III? I don't think so. The words of the founders themselves suggest something else. Could it be that the men who formed the Declaration Committee gave us a clue in the very document they drafted? Well, I think so. What brought them together and unified their resolve to risk their lives and fortunes and stake their honor was what they believed. What made them Americans was their common faith and the commitment to act boldly on that faith. What were the tenets of that faith as expressed in the Declaration? Well, for them it came down to 3 basic points. They said, there is a God, a creator God. They said, our rights come from him. And they said, the purpose of government is to protect and defend these God-given rights. This is the faith of our fathers and its application to government. It's what made them Americans. Now let me ask you, are our current leaders in government Americans? Do they believe these things, and are they committed to act on these beliefs? And allow me to challenge you once again. Are you an American? This is Michael Anthony Peruka for Institute on the Constitution, bringing you the American View.
Okay, it's quiz time. The title of the Q&A pages explains the purpose of the questions. Making an impact, lesson, applications, and actions Q&A. I put a few of the questions in a little quiz. After the quiz, we'll have one more short video to watch.
At the foundation of every social order is a concept of law and government. For most of the history of our country, this foundation was the Bible, the Word of God, including both the Old and the New Testaments. Thus, the American view of law and government is founded on the biblical view of law and government. This is explicitly made clear in the Declaration of Independence, which makes reference to the laws of nature and nature's God, and the supreme judge of the world. Now, the Declaration, which the U.S. Code calls the organic law of the United States, asserts a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. The Declaration goes on to say that all men are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these God-given rights, our founders said that governments are instituted among men. So our foundational law says clearly, explicitly, that the express purpose of government is to secure, to protect rights we already have from God. It is not the role nor the ability of government to give people rights, but instead to protect the rights God has already given us as human beings made in His image. We're often told today that America was founded as a secular country where law and government are supposedly neutral and totally man-made. Well, this is false. This is dangerous. This is destructive of liberty, and as has been demonstrated, this is un-American. This is Michael Anthony Peruka for Institute on the Constitution, bringing you the American View.
I hope that wasn't difficult. You may have noticed the answers are in your student manual. I hope you didn't cheat. The quiz you just took was designed to bring you to the conclusion that the founders' original intent was for the church and the state to work together, side by side, to set up a moral government. Our government is only sufficient for a just and moral people. Now, I said I had one more video, and this one is from the late Paul Harvey. What happened to the signers of the Declaration of Independence?
But for any eve of the 4th of July, I, Paul Harvey, do herewith bequeath unto you something to remember. You may not be able to quote one line from the Declaration of Independence at this moment. Henceforth, you'll always be able to quote at least one line. It's in the last paragraph where you will recall when I remind you. It says, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." In the Pennsylvania State House that's now called Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the best men from each of the colonies sat down together. This was a very fortunate hour in our nation's history, one of those rare occasions in the lives of men when we had greatness to spare. These were men of means, well-educated. 24 were lawyers and jurists. 9 were farmers, owners of large plantations. On June 11, a committee sat down to draw up a Declaration of Independence. We were going to tell the British fatherland, no more rule by redcoats. Below the dam of ruthless foreign rule, the stream of freedom was running shallow and muddy. And we were going to light a fuse to dynamite that dam. This pact, as Burke later put it, was a partnership between the living and the dead and the yet unborn. There was no bigotry, there was no demagoguery in this group. All had shared hardship. Jefferson finished a draft of the document in 17 days. Congress adopted it in July, and so much is familiar history. But now, King George III had denounced all rebels in America as traitors. Punishment for treason was hanging. The names now so familiar to you from the several signatures on that Declaration of Independence, the names were kept secret for 6 months, for each knew the full meaning of that magnificent last paragraph in which his signature pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. 56 men placed their names beneath that pledge. 56 men knew when they signed that they were risking everything. They knew if they won this fight, the best they could expect would be years of hardship in a struggling nation. And if they lost, they'd face a hangman's rope. But they signed the pledge. And here is the documented fate of that gallant 56. Carter Braxton of Virginia, wealthy planter, trader, saw his ships swept from the seas. To pay his debt, he lost his home and all of his properties and died in rags. Thomas Lynch Jr., who signed that pledge, was a third-generation rice grower, aristocrat, large plantation owner. After he signed, his health failed. His wife and he set out for France to regain his failing health. Their ship never got to France, was never heard from again. Thomas McKean of Delaware was so harassed by the enemy that he was forced to move his family 5 times in 5 months. He served in Congress without pay, his family in poverty and in hiding. Vandals looted the properties of Ellery and Clymer and Hall and Gwinnett and Walton and Hayward and Rutledge and Middleton. Thomas Nelson Jr. of Virginia raised $2 million on his own signature to provision our allies, the French fleet. After the war, he personally paid back the loans, wiped out his entire estate, and he was never reimbursed by his government. In the final battle for Yorktown, he, Nelson, urged General Washington to fire on his, Nelson's, own home, which was occupied by Cornwallis. It was destroyed. Thomas Nelson Jr. had pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. The Hessians seized the home of Francis Hopkinson of New Jersey. Francis Lewis had his home and everything destroyed, his wife imprisoned. She died within a few months. Richard Stockton, who signed that declaration, was captured, mistreated. his health broken to the extent that he died at 51. His estate was pillaged. Thomas Hayward Jr. was captured when Charleston fell. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside while she was dying. Their 13 children fled in all directions for their lives. His fields and grist mill were laid waste. For more than a year, he lived in forests and caves and returned home after the war to find his wife dead, his children gone, his properties gone, and he died a few weeks later of exhaustion and a broken heart. Lewis Morris saw his land destroyed, his family scattered. Philip Livingston died within a few months from the hardships of the war. John Hancock, history remembers best due to a quirk of fate rather than anything he stood for, that great sweeping signature attesting to his vanity, towers over the others, one of the wealthiest men in New England. And yet he stood outside Boston one terrible night of the war, and he said, "Burn Boston, though it makes John Hancock a beggar, if the public good requires it." So he, too, lived up to the pledge. Of the 56, few were long to survive. 5 were captured by the British and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes from Rhode Island to Charleston sacked, looted, occupied by the enemy, or burned. 2 lost their sons in the army. 1 had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 died in the war from its hardships or from its more merciful bullets. I don't know what impression you had of the men who met that summer in Philadelphia. But I think it's important that we remember this about them. They were not poor men. They were not wild-eyed pirates. These were men of means. They were rich men, most of them, and had enjoyed much ease and luxury in their personal living. Not hungry men, certainly not terrorists, not irresponsible malcontents, not fanatical incendiaries. These men were prosperous men, wealthy landowners. They were substantially secure in their prosperity. They had everything to lose. But they considered liberty, and this is as much as I shall say of it. They had learned that liberty is so much more important than security, that they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And they fulfilled their pledge. They paid the price, and freedom was born.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Paul Harvey's perspective. Well, that's about all I have for lesson 1. Let's close with the prayer, and then I'll see you in lesson 2. Almighty Creator, please give this student the knowledge and strength to go out into the world and make a difference by shining a light on your glory. Let your will be done and return our republic to a just and moral society that was fashioned after biblical principles. Amen. So, So that's the preview. That's the preview, the free preview of lesson 1. And I hope you enjoyed it. That's the first of 4 lessons in that first course. I haven't even finished lesson 2 yet, but I wanted to get that out there to you. And I wanted to see if it was something that I should continue doing. It's a lot of work. And I want your support. So if you're interested in these courses, like I said, liberty-lighthouse.com/classroom. And you can either buy each course individually. That one is going to be $10. Or you can, right now, code Lighthouse gets you 50% off, so it would be $5. Or you could subscribe, which is $100 a year. Using code Lighthouse, it would be $50 a year, or $10 a month, $5 a month, and get all the courses as they're being made, plus all of my books, all for that subscription price. We only have a couple of minutes left, but if you have questions, comments, or concerns, I will open up the phone lines for these last couple of minutes. 512-248-8252. If you must use a toll-free line, it's 800-313-9443. The Paul Harvey thing. Anytime I hear that particular story, it brings a tear to my eye. When you listen to what happened to these men that signed the Declaration of Independence, it really chokes me up a little bit. And it makes me think, am I ready? Are you ready? Could you pledge your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor and honestly mean it? Because if you can't, then the evils they're still sufferable. The Declaration of Independence says that men are more likely to suffer the evils that are sufferable rather than to write their own government, throw off what they know, what's comfortable for something new. So where are you in this? Are the evils still sufferable? I don't know. I put a lot of time and effort into writing my books and doing this show and now building these courses. So much so that my beautiful wife was a little upset with me the other day when I was trying really, really hard to get this lesson 1 done before this show so I could play that and give you a free sample of what the course will be like. I hope it's worth it. I hope you think it's worth it. But like I said, it's a lot of work. I need your support. I need you to show me that it's worth doing. It's a worthwhile endeavor. Go and subscribe. Use the code Lighthouse before the middle of September. Save 50%. Give me $5 a month just to show me that the courses are worth making. I greatly appreciate that. And then, of course, I also, at the same time, have a book coming out, A More Tyrannical King. That comes out on September 17th, on Constitution Day. It's $10.99 in paperback, $5.99 in electronic book, ebook, Kindle book, whatever you want to call it. Or if you subscribe, you can get it for free, for no additional charge. So it brings me to the end of the show. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Mike, my producer. Can't do the show without you. I'm not going to be here next week. We got Steve O'Brien is going to be filling in. I got a concert to go to with the beautiful wife. Until next week, protect your liberties. Once they're gone, there's no getting them back. God bless America.
Good luck, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town full of good old boys. Raised raised upright. If you're looking for a fight, try that in a small town. Try that in a small town. Round here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town.
These farmers are dropping their own crops for the day. A friend is in need.